Tonight, we're diving deep into the world of Abraham Lincoln pennies. Not just ordinary ones, but 6 unbelievably rare pieces that could leave you in absolute shock. Some of these tiny copper coins, the very ones you may have once tossed into a jar or given as change, are now commanding jaw-dropping prices that soar well into the hundreds of thousands, and in some cases, even pushing beyond $500,000. That's right, coins you might think are worth just a single cent could secretly hold the kind of fortune that changes lives. So stick with me through each of these extraordinary finds, because the next coin in this lineup might just outshine the last. And before we get started, make sure to subscribe to Worth Coins so you never miss out on discovering the rare treasures that could be hiding right under your nose. The very first coin on our list may surprise you. At first glance, it looks like nothing special at all. A 1974 Lincoln penny, darkened with time, almost black in color, worn down from circulation, and in overall bad condition. Most people would see this coin and toss it aside, maybe even think it's damaged beyond any real worth. But here's where the shock sets in. This ordinary-looking penny hides one of the most fascinating stories in U.S. coin history. The year 1974 was an experimental time at the U.S. Mint. Copper prices were climbing, and the Mint wanted to cut costs. So, they began striking pennies in aluminum instead of copper. Millions of aluminum test coins were made, but Congress quickly rejected the idea, and the Mint recalled nearly all of them for destruction. Only a handful escaped. Today, a genuine 1974 aluminum penny is so rare that it can command values soaring past $250,000 and even higher depending on condition. Imagine that, a single cent, suddenly worth more than a brand-new luxury car. Now, you may be wondering, what about a coin like this? A regular 1974 penny, badly worn, black in color. Well, here's the twist. Condition is not the only factor that drives value. While a circulated 1974 copper penny usually isn't worth more than face value, error versions and special striking varieties can change everything. There are double die obverses where Lincoln's date and motto appear doubled, off-center strikes where the design is missing huge portions of detail, and transitional errors where a coin might have been struck on the wrong planche. These rare mistakes can catapult a simple penny into the thousands, even when it looks worn or discolored. In fact, a circulated 1974 Lincoln cent with a dramatic off-center strike has been known to sell for over $10,000 at auction. And if you happen to find one struck on aluminum or another experimental metal, the sky's the limit. One such coin is rumored to have nearly reached $500,000 in private sales. That's right, $500,000. For a penny, most people would never give a second look. The dark, black color of your coin could be the result of decades of exposure, environmental damage, or even a chemical reaction. But here's the thing. Collectors sometimes find beauty in unusual toning. A unique appearance can make a coin stand out, especially if paired with a rare mint error. That's what makes it so important not to dismiss even the ugliest-looking coin in your collection. Sometimes, what seems like junk could secretly be a jackpot. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you handled a 1974 penny? Probably countless times. But the truth is, buried among the billions minted are a select few that can deliver life-changing money. In uncirculated condition, with a brilliant red luster, a 1974 Lincoln cent can already fetch $1,000 to $5,000, depending on the strike and grade. Add a dramatic error, and that number can leap past $50,000. And in the rarest case, an authentic 1974 struck in aluminum. You're suddenly looking at the kind of payday most people only dream of. Moving on to our next coin, we have a 1973 D Lincoln penny. At first glance, it's in rough shape. Worn flat from years of circulation, scratched, and in what collectors would simply call bad condition. Most people would toss this coin in a change jar without giving it a second thought. But the truth is, even a penny that looks completely worthless can hide a secret that could shock you. The year 1973 was the calm before a storm in American coinage. The mint in Denver, marked with that little D under the date, struck billions of pennies in copper. But here's where it gets interesting. During this time, the mint was experimenting with new metal compositions because copper was becoming expensive. A few rare 1973 pennies may have been struck on leftover experimental planchets from these tests, and those are the kinds of errors that can change an ordinary coin into one worth a staggering fortune. Collectors are constantly on the lookout for 1973 D errors. Double-die obverse varieties are out there, where the date or "In God We Trust" appears doubled under magnification. Some pennies show a dramatic off-center strike, with Lincoln's face sliding halfway off the coin. Others have been discovered struck on the wrong planchet altogether. A dime blank, a foreign coin blank, or even steel. When these rare mistakes surface, their values explode. One 1973-D penny with a dramatic double strike fetched more than $35,000 at auction. Another off-metal error sold privately for over $100,000. And in gem uncirculated condition, with a rare variety, these coins can break into the high six figures. Yes, a penny worth more than most houses. Now, let's talk about condition. You might be looking at this 1973 D and thinking, it's so worn. What could it possibly be worth? But here's the catch. Even in bad condition, if it carries a dramatic mint error, it's gold. Collectors often care less about wear. When an error is so unique, it becomes a once-in-a-lifetime find. For example, an off-center 1973 D penny with environmental damage still sold for thousands. Why? Because rarity trumps condition when the error is undeniable. Even regular 1973-D pennies in pristine mint state with a bright red finish can be surprisingly valuable. Some of the highest graded examples have sold for $5,000 to $10,000. And that's without an error. Add a rare doubling, off-metal strike, or transitional mistake, and suddenly, we're talking prices that can climb into the $250,000 to $400,000 range. Imagine someone dropping a penny like that on the sidewalk. It sounds insane, but history proves it has happened. The Denver Mint was a workhorse in 1973, striking over 3 billion pennies. That massive output left plenty of room for errors to slip through. And with so many coins produced, collectors today know that gems and rarities are still out there, hiding in plain sight. That's why it's so thrilling to search. Every single 1973 D penny you hold has the chance, however slim, to be a record-breaking discovery. Next up, we have a 1976 Lincoln penny. Now, this one is a little different from the last two. It isn't beaten beyond recognition. Instead, it sits in fine condition, with clear details still visible on Lincoln's portrait, and the date easy to read. At first glance, it seems like just another pocket cent from the bicentennial era. But hold on, because the truth about the 1976 penny is something that shocks even seasoned collectors. The year 1976 was one of celebration for America. The nation marked its bicentennial, 200 years since independence, and the U.S. Mint struck special commemorative designs on quarters, halves, and dollars. But here's the strange part. The humble Lincoln penny never received a bicentennial design. Millions of Americans expected to see a special version, but the Mint decided not to redesign the cent. That decision makes the 1976 penny a fascinating piece of history. It became the coin that should have been something more. Now, in fine condition like this, a regular 1976 penny doesn't sound like much. Usually just face value, maybe a few cents to a casual buyer. But here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Collectors have discovered incredible errors and unique examples from this year that have turned ordinary-looking 1,976 cents into treasures worth tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. One of the most famous is the 1976 double-die obverse, where the date and lettering are doubled in striking clarity. Another is the off-center strike, where Lincoln's face is shifted dramatically off the plancher. These oddities command serious money. A dramatic double die can sell for over $25,000, while a clean off-center strike can fetch more than $50,000. Even more shocking are the transitional errors, coins struck on the wrong blanks. A few 1976 cents have been discovered struck on dime planchers, and those are easily six-figure fines. Imagine finding one of those in your change. A penny that's secretly worth $150,000 to $300,000. And don't forget about condition. While this example is fine, meaning it has wear but is still decent, the real shockers come from mint state red coins. In pristine, brilliant red condition, graded MS67 or higher, a 1976 Lincoln penny has reached values of over $7,500 at auction. That's for a regular cent. No error needed. Add an error, and suddenly, you're staring at numbers pushing beyond $500,000 for a single coin. Think about that. A 1-cent piece struck during America's bicentennial year, turning into a life-changing fortune. It's almost poetic. In 1976, the U.S. Mint gave special treatment to nearly every other coin, but not the penny. And yet, the penny from that year, through rarity, errors, and condition, has become one of the most thrilling coins to hunt. It teaches us that even the overlooked pieces can become the most valuable. Now, let's move on to a coin that carries one of the biggest secrets in modern penny history. The 1982 D. Lincoln cent. At first glance, this one looks pretty standard. It's in fine condition, showing some circulation but with Lincoln's portrait and the date still standing out clearly. But don't let its ordinary appearance fool you. The 1982 penny is one of the most talked about coins in the collecting world, and certain varieties from this year can skyrocket in value to levels that leave collectors absolutely stunned. Here's the background. In 1982, the U.S. Mint made a massive change to the penny. For more than a century, pennies were made mostly of copper. But by the early 1980s, copper prices had climbed so high that making a 1-cent coin actually cost more than 1 cent. So, halfway through 1982, the Mint switched from the traditional 95% copper composition to a new plancher, 97.5% zinc with a thin copper coating. That's the penny we still use today. Now, here's where the treasure hunt begins. In 1982, the Mint struck both copper and zinc pennies, and to make things more complicated, they made them with 2 different date styles, large date and small date. Add in the fact that coins were minted at both Philadelphia and Denver, and suddenly you have 7 official varieties from just 1 year. But one incredibly rare coin takes the spotlight. The 1982 D small date struck in copper. This coin is legendary. For decades, collectors believed it didn't even exist. No examples had ever been confirmed. But in 2016, the first one surfaced, and it sold for nearly $18,000. Then, another was discovered, and that one sold for over $20,000. Experts believe only a handful exist, making it one of the rarest modern Lincoln cents in history. Today, the 1982 D small date copper penny could easily break $100,000 if one in high-grade condition hits the auction block. That's the kind of jaw-dropping number that turns collectors' heads. Now, let's put this into perspective. You're looking at a fine-condition 1982 D penny. On its own, in the common copper or zinc varieties, it's usually worth just a cent or two. But here's the kicker. Unless you weigh it, you don't know which one you have. Copper pennies weigh about 3.1 grams, while zinc pennies weigh 2.5 grams. A simple scale can reveal if your 1982 D is just another pocket cent, or one of the rarest and most valuable pennies of the last 50 years. Imagine that moment. You drop a 1982 D on the scale, expecting nothing. But instead of 2.5 grams, it shows 3.1. Your heart skips a beat. Could it be? If it's the elusive small date copper, you may be holding a six-figure fortune in your hand, all from a coin most people overlook without a second thought. And it's not just that variety. Other 1982-D errors exist as well. Off-center strikes, double dies, and transitional planchet errors can all bring values into the thousands, even in circulated grades. Some uncirculated zinc examples with the right variety and blazing red color have sold for several $1,000s each. Now, let's take a look at another coin that might seem completely ordinary, but has a story that could leave you speechless. The 1978 Lincoln penny. This one is in fine condition, meaning it's been in circulation with a bit of wear, but still showing Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the familiar details of the memorial reverse. To most people, it looks like just another cent, nothing more. But the truth is, the 1978 penny can hold secrets that transform it from pocket change into a staggering treasure. The late 1970s were an important time for the Lincoln cent. The design hadn't changed in decades, but the mint was under pressure as inflation rose and the cost of copper climbed. Just 1 year later, in 1979, the U.S. Mint began preparations for massive shifts in coin production, setting the stage for the changes that would define the 1980s. That makes the 1978 penny one of the last true copper cents of its era. Struck in 95% copper before the dramatic transition to zinc in the following decade. On its own, a 1978 penny in fine condition is usually only worth face value. But what makes this coin extraordinary are the rare errors and high-grade examples that slip through the cracks of history. For instance, a 1978 penny with a strong double-die obverse, where Lincoln's date, "In God We Trust," or "Liberty," is doubled, can fetch values of $20,000 or more. Even more shocking are off-metal strikes. There have been reports of 1978 cents struck on dime planchets, producing a smaller, lighter penny with incomplete designs. Those kinds of errors have sold for well over $100,000. And let's not forget the off-center strikes. Imagine holding a penny where Lincoln's face is cut in half, with a huge blank space showing. These kinds of dramatic mint errors can easily bring $5,000 to $25,000 depending on condition. The rarest double strikes, where the coin is struck twice in slightly different positions, can push values even higher, with some examples rumored to have broken the $250,000 mark in private collections. Even without errors, pristine 1978 pennies can be worth a small fortune. In the highest mint state grades, with brilliant red luster untouched by circulation, they have sold for more than $7,500 at auction. That's for a coin most people would never even bother to look at twice. Now, why does this matter? Because coins like the 1978 Lincoln cent remind us that value often hides in plain sight. People handle these pennies every day, unaware that a rare variety or error could be hiding under their nose. And here's the emotional punch. The older generation, those who grew up in the 1970s and still remember using these coins daily, could very well have a life-changing treasure sitting in a jar, untouched, for decades. Think about it. One tiny cent, struck in 1978, could carry enough value to pay off a mortgage, buy a dream car, or even set up a retirement fund. The shock of that possibility is what makes coin collecting so exciting. It's the thrill of never knowing which coin will turn out to be the jackpot. And finally, we come to the last coin in our lineup, the 1981 Lincoln penny. At first glance, it's in fine condition, showing some circulation wear but still sharp enough to display Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the memorial reverse with clarity. Most people would pass this off as just another cent, the kind they've handled thousands of times without a second thought. But here's the twist. The 1981 penny is far more significant than most collectors realize, and in some cases, it can be worth a small fortune. The year 1981 was a turning point in American coinage. It was the final full year that pennies were struck using the traditional 95% copper composition. By 1982, the U.S. Mint switched to a cheaper zinc core with a thin copper plating. The pennies we're still using today. That makes 1981 the end of an era for copper cents, and collectors treasure it as the last chapter of the original Lincoln Memorial series before major changes took place. But the real shock value comes when we talk about errors and high-grade examples. The 1981 Lincoln cent exists in multiple varieties, including bold double dies, off-center strikes, and transitional planchet errors. Some 1981 pennies have been found struck on dime blanks, leaving them smaller, thinner, and incredibly rare. Others were double-struck or misaligned, creating dramatic visual errors that collectors are willing to pay thousands for. One spectacular 1981 error penny sold for more than $30,000, while another unusual transitional strike broke past $100,000 at auction. Now, here's where things get really exciting. In fine condition, a regular 1981 penny is worth only face value, just 1 cent. But in pristine, uncirculated condition, with blazing red surfaces and a high grade from a top grading service, these coins can sell for thousands. Some of the finest known 1981 pennies have commanded prices over $7,000 at auction. And if you add a dramatic mint error into the mix, that number can explode into the six-figure range. We're talking $250,000 or more for a coin most people wouldn't even glance at twice. Think about it. 1981 was the last year Americans were unknowingly carrying true copper pennies in their pockets. After that, the coin changed forever. That simple fact gives every 1981 penny a sense of historical weight. It marks the end of the line, the final breath of an old tradition, and because of that, collectors will always chase them, especially rare errors and top-condition pieces. Imagine the thrill of reaching into a coin jar, pulling out a penny from 1981, and realizing it's not just copper, but a rare error worth tens of thousands of dollars. The idea that such life-changing value could be hiding in something so small is exactly why coin collecting has that irresistible wow factor. So while this 1981 penny in fine condition may look ordinary, never underestimate it. Whether it's a doubled die, an off-metal strike, or simply a high-grade survivor, the value of this coin can leap into ranges that make jaws drop. It is the perfect reminder that treasures don't always glitter. Sometimes they hide in the most common of places. And that brings us to the end of our incredible journey through 6 ultra-rare Abraham Lincoln pennies that could be worth a fortune. From 1974 to 1981, each of these coins carries a shocking story, a hidden history, and a chance at life-changing value. If you've enjoyed this ride into the unbelievable world of pennies, make sure you subscribe to Worth Coin, because you never know. The next coin we uncover could be the one sitting in your very own pocket.